Hello friends, welcome to my channel Clinical Biochemistry by Dr. P.K. Prabhakar. Today we are going to talk about the beta oxidation of fatty acids. So before going to talk about the beta oxidation of fatty acids, we should understand what is the fatty acids and what is their significance and why we require beta oxidations. So if we'll see the beta fatty acids first, these fatty acids normally have many uses. So in our body, lipids, or you can call it fatty acids, they are indispensable. Means you cannot replace fatty acid because of their functions, because of their role in our body. One of the most important role of fat lipids in our body is they are going to be involved in the cell structure and their functions as hormones, different kind of other products what we are having. So due to their hydrophobic nature, lipids are normally, you know that it is hydrophobic nature, which we have already seen in the basics of lipids. And they are non-polar in nature. So because of hydrophobicity and non-polar nature, lipids are only soluble in organic solvents, normally not soluble in water. So other biomolecules, whatever we are having, either nucleic acid we are having, carbohydrates we are having, proteins we are having, they are polar in the nature and they are water soluble in nature. So by nature, these fatty acids are completely different from other biomolecules which is present in our body. If you'll see, this lipid constitute in our body is roughly 15 to 20% of the body weight in our body. As we have seen in case of proteins, in a cells, roughly 50% portion is composed of proteins in the living cells in our body, and remaining in the remaining 50%, 15 to 20% comes from the lipid only. In these lipids, the maximum portion is composed of triglycerides. So whatever 15 to 20% lipid we are having, in this 15 to 20%, 85 to 90% of this lipid is triglyceride, which is previously called as triglyceride. Nowadays we are going to call it triacylglycerols. So most of the triacylglycerols normally we are going to store in the adipose tissue, and it serves as an energy reserve of our body along with the glycogen. So whenever we are having any surplus amount of glucose, that glucose will be stored in the form of glycogen, mainly in the livers, and this triacylglycerol in the adipose tissue mainly. Otherwise, some amount of triglyceride is also going to be stored in the liver and some amount of other places also, but mainly it is going to be stored into the adipose tissue. This is in contrast to carbohydrate and protein, which cannot be normally stored to a significant extent for the energy purposes. So maximum we are going to store in the form of triglyceride. Now you know that triglycerides, normally it is composed of glycerol, and which is glycerol is associated with three different fatty acids. So either those three fatty acids will be the same or it will be different. So whenever you are going to metabolize a triacylglycerol, or triglyceride will be metabolized, so you will get a one molecule of glycerol and three molecule of fatty acids. So either those fatty acids will be the same fatty acid or it will be different fatty acids, and this fatty acid is going to be metabolized into the cells inside the mitochondria. That we will see during the beta oxidations. So this is a story of the triglyceride and why fatty acid, what is the significance of fatty acid in our body. Now why these fatty acids we are going to keep as an energy reservoir? The most important reason for this one is this triacylglycerols are the first thing I have told you, it is one of the most prevalent or predominant storage form of energy. And the other reason is this triacylglycerols are highly concentrated form of energy, and it gives you the maximum energy among all the biomolecules. If you are going to metabolize 1 gram of carbohydrate and 1 gram of proteins, you will get only 4 calories per gram. But if you are going to metabolize 1 gram of fats, you will get 9 calories. So it is almost more than the double amount of energy we are going to get it. That is because of the highly concentrated form of triglyceride. Second important reason is the hydrophobicity of this one. So triacylglycerols are non-polar and hydrophobic in nature. So it can be stored in the pure form without any association of the water. If you are going to compare this one with the carbohydrate, so 1 gram of glycerol is associated with 2 molecule of 2 gram of water, means only 33% will be the glycerol and 66% water will be there. So I have told you glycerol and proteins are polar and they are going to be associated with 1 gram of glycerol will be associated with 2 gram of water. So whenever we are going to metabolize this one, So only 33% will be the glycogen, and that 33% will be give you the energy. Because of these two reasons, we are normally going to store triglyceride as energy reservoirs. You can see some of the examples also, like bear, polar bear. They go for hibernations roughly for more than 7 months, and during this all these 7 months, the energy is derived from the degradation of the fat stored into their body as a blubber or as a below their skins. So fat serves reserve as a energy storage, and that fulfill their requirement for this during the hibernation processes in case of polar bear. Another animal, that is ruby-throated hummingbirds, can fly non-stop between from England, New England to the West Indies, roughly 2,400 kilometers, and that is unstopped fly at a speed of 40 kilometers per hour for 60 hours. So continuous fly for 60 hours, and during this flying, it is only the fats are going to provide them energy. So fat are going to give you sufficient or more than the sufficient amount of energy. These two examples will give you some kind of information about that one. So how much energy we are going to get it. So either you are having triglyceride as a energy reservoir, or directly you are going to have fatty acids. So these two forms of fatty acid and triglycerides are going to metabolize, and ultimately we will have a fatty acids. These fatty acids can be of different types depending on their structures and depending on their carbon chains. So it can be straight chain fatty acids, branch chain fatty acids, substituted fatty acids, or cyclic fatty acids, where carbon chain will be in the cyclic forms. The maximum amount of we are having, that is straight chain fatty acid. So whenever we are talking about a straight chain fatty acid, it can be saturated or it can be unsaturated. Saturated means no double bond or triple bond will be there between the carbon and carbon. We will see some of the examples also later on. So in case of saturated, we don't have even a single double bond, and in unsaturated, minimum one double bond will be present between carbon to carbon. Whenever we are talking about saturated, that time we are having even chain fatty acids or odd chain fatty acid depending on the carbon number. If carbon number will be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 20, 22 like that one, it is called as even chain fatty acids. And if carbon number will be odd, like 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, 15, so that is called as odd chain fatty acids. Similarly, unsaturated fatty acids can be of two types. Either it will be monounsaturated if only one double bond will be there, and if more than one double bond will be there, then it is called as polyunsaturated fatty acids. So these are the different classification which we have already seen in case of basics of fatty acids. Here are example of saturated and unsaturated. These are, you can see, these are the straight chain fatty acids. Both are straight chain fatty acids. In this case, in the case of upper one, between the carbon and carbon, we have single bond. This is single bond, single bond. So all are single bond only. So no double bond between the carbon and carbon. Whereas in this case, lower picture, you can see one double bond is here. So this is called as monounsaturated fatty acids. So whatever different type of fatty acids we are having, they are going to be oxidized. They are oxidized means you can call it metabolic processes. So depending on the carbon, their structures and their locations, we are having different type of oxidations. One oxidation is called as alpha oxidations. What is alpha oxidations? When a fatty acids alpha carbon means the carbon which is attached, first carbon which is attached to the COOH group, they are called as alpha carbon. So if oxidation will occurs at the alpha carbon, then we calling alpha oxidations. If you will see this chain, in this chains, this is the COH group, and the first carbon where COH group is associated, this is called as alpha carbon. This is beta, gamma, delta, like this one. And this side, if you are going to count from this side, then we are going to call it omega chain. This is omega end. So this is omega 1, this is omega 2, this is omega 3, this is omega 4, so and so on. So if we are going to start oxidation at the alpha carbon, it is called as alpha oxidations. In that case, one carbon, every time one carbon exit in the form of carbon dioxide. So in case of alpha oxidations, one carbon will exit in the form of carbon dioxide from the. So that is called as alpha oxidations. So if we are going to alpha oxidation will occur between the beta carbon, between means alpha and beta, between this one. So in that case, 2 carbon chain is going to exit in the form of acetyl coenzyme A, that is called as beta oxidation. And if we are going to oxidize from the omega end, it is called as omega oxidations. So depending on from where or which carbon is going to involve in the oxidation degradations, so on the basis of that one we are having different names. So 3 important names are alpha, beta and omega oxidations. Other than this one, we are also having odd chain fatty acids oxidations, unsaturated fatty acid oxidations and very long chain fatty acid oxidations. And normally their places, the locations where these oxidation occurs also varies. Like you can see, alpha oxidation occurs in endoplasmic reticulum and peroxisomes. Beta oxidations occurs in mitochondria. Omega oxidations occurs in endoplasmic reticulum and microsomes. Similarly, odd chain fatty acids occurs in mitochondria along with unsaturated fatty acids oxidations, and very long chain fatty acid oxidation occurs in mitochondria and peroxisomes. When we are talking about the straight chain fatty acids, so we are having different type of carbon chain length. It will be short chain carbon length, medium chain, long chains, like that one. So this is same alpha, beta, omega and peroxisomal oxidations. When we are talking about the short chain fatty acid oxidation, if carbon number in the fatty acid will be 4 to 8, we are going to call it short chain fatty acid. And short chain fatty acids metabolism occurs in mitochondria. Medium chain, if carbon number will be 6 to 12, we are going to call medium carbon length, medium chain fatty acids, and their oxidation occurs in mitochondria. Long chain fatty acids, if carbon number will be 10 to 16, we are going to call it long chain fatty acid, and their oxidation occurs in mitochondria and peroxisome. Very long chain fatty acids, if it is having roughly on an average, we are going to call, if more than 20 carbons will be there, we are going to call it very long chain fatty acids. Like this one you can see 17 to 26, and their oxidation occurs in peroxisomes. So depending on carbons, which carbon will of fatty acid is going to involve, from where it occurs, so the location of fatty acid oxidations varies according to the carbon involved in the oxidations and which type of chain fatty acid is having. So here we are going, today we are going to mainly going to focus on the beta oxidations. Whenever we are going to talk about beta oxidations, so beta oxidations is normally going to divide into, they are going to 3-step process. The first step is the activation, second step is called as transportation, and third step is called as fatty acid oxidations. Why 3 steps are required? So first we will see important what is the requirement of this one. So if you are going to metabolize triglyceride, so you will have free fatty acid will be released along with the glycerol. Those circulatory fatty acids are taken by the cells. If you will see here, so whatever circulatory fatty acids we are having, those circulatory fatty acids will be taken into the cells by specific receptors. By in the different tissue is going to take it through 2 important receptors. This is we are talking about the kidney tubules. Through 2 receptors, one is CD36 and second one is fatty acid binding protein. So this circulatory fatty acids come into the inside the cells. So this is cytoplasm. Now this fatty acid come into the cytoplasm. So here it is going to involve in 3 different steps. So the tissue like liver, kidney, muscles, brain, lung, testis and adipose tissue have the ability to oxidize normally long chain fatty acids. And especially if you remember the cardiac tissue, in the cardiac tissue fatty acids are important fuel source, especially for the respiratory process. More than 80% energy of the cardiac tissue comes from the fatty acid oxidation. So remember, in the cardiac tissue more than 80% energy comes from fatty acid oxidations. Now we know that beta oxidations mainly occur inside the mitochondria, mitochondrial matrix, and this process requires a enzymatic systems. So whole system which is involved in the beta oxidation of fatty acids are called as fatty acid oxidase systems, which is normally present into the mitochondrial matrix. Now, so once this fatty acid circulatory fatty acids come into the cells, So it is now into the cytosols, or that is called as extra mitochondrial location of the cells. So the first step of this fatty acid is going for activations, because this is normally less reactive or non-reactive, you can call it. So the first step, this process is called as activation of fatty acid. So that activation of fatty acid takes place into the cytoplasm. We will see in the details how this activation takes place. After this one, this fatty acid which is activated and give us acyl coenzyme A, this acyl coenzyme A is going to be transported into this from the cytoplasm into the mitochondrial matrix. So acyl coenzyme A need to be transported from cytoplasm to the mitochondrial matrix. So this portion is called as step number 2, that is transportation of activated fatty acid from the cytoplasm to the mitochondrial matrix. And third step will be the metabolic process of acyl coenzyme A and gives us acetyl coenzyme A, and then this acetyl coenzyme A enter into the TCA cycle, Krebs cycle, gives us FADH, NADH, and that will ultimately gives you ATP. So this is the process how this fatty acids involve in the ATP production. So we have seen 3 important steps. First, activation of the fatty acids after the fatty acid enter into the cells. Then transportation of the activated fatty acid into the mitochondrial matrix, and third one will be the final stage of the fatty acid, oxidations. Now one by one we are going to see. First step is the activation of fatty acid. So first step is the activation of fatty acid, which is a energy consuming process. Energy consuming process means it requires energy, and energy comes from ATP. So in the first step, fatty acid reacts with ATP, which is having 3 phosphates. So from this ATP, AMP portion is going to be associated with this fatty acid, linked with this fatty acid, and ultimately gives us, you can see here AMP, it gives you acyl adenylate, and 2 phosphate will exit from here in the form of pyrophosphate, PPI. This pyrophosphate ultimately going to be broken down by pyrophosphatase and gives you 2 inorganic phosphate. So it will give you 2 inorganic phosphate. Now, so effectively we are going to consume ATP and we are going to degrade 2 pyrophosphate energy bonds, means that is equivalent to 2 ATP consumptions. So here it is equivalent to 2 ATP consumption. This is the first step. In the second step, this acyl adenylate which we have produced in the first step is going to combine with, react with coenzyme A molecules. So here AMP portion will be released and this coenzyme A portion will be associated with the fatty acids. So ultimately we have got acyl coenzyme A, or more correctly we can call it fatty acyl coenzyme A. And this reaction is catalyzed by an enzyme that is called as acyl coenzyme A synthetase, or it is also called as thiokinase enzyme. So not only this is the 2-step reactions we have seen. First step, fatty acid combines with ATP, gives you acyl adenylate and pyrophosphate will be released. Acyl adenylate combines with coenzyme A, gives you acyl coenzyme A, and AMP will be released. So this ATP gives you AMP and 2 inorganic phosphate. So 2 ATP has been consumed and reaction is catalyzed by acyl coenzyme A synthetase, or it is called as thiokinase enzyme. This reaction activation not only we require for saturated fatty acid, it is also required for unsaturated fatty acids also. So both type of fatty acids goes for activation processes. Now this acyl coenzyme A, which enzyme we are talking about, this enzyme is exactly present in the endoplasmic reticulum plus, so this enzyme is, if we are going to see here, I will write it here, it is present in endoplasmic reticulum plus for inside the mitochondria for short chain fatty acids and outside the mitochondria for long chain fatty acids. So it is present in inside of mitochondria and outside of mitochondria. So both places. So 3 different locations we are having. If you will see in human, in our body, in the humans, roughly we are having more than 26 different types of acyl coenzyme A synthetase is present. Some of these enzymes, acyl coenzyme synthetase in the human body, not only involve in the activation reactions of this one, but they also help us in the transportation of fatty acid inside the cells. And these 26 different type of acyl coenzyme synthetase differs in their substrate, differs in their subcellular locations. Location means inside the cells where it is going to be present, either into the cytoplasm, into the mitochondria, into the endoplasmic reticulum. So their location is going to be different, substrates are differ, and their tissue distributions are also different. Some member of this fatty acids, acyl coenzyme synthetase, are long chain acyl coenzyme synthetase, medium chain acyl coenzyme synthetase, short chain acyl coenzyme synthetase. So there are different types of acyl coenzyme synthetase. So ultimately thing is, we have started with fatty acid, and ultimately we have got acyl coenzyme into the cytoplasm, because this activation process occurs in to the cytoplasm. So we have seen here, this is a fatty acids because of thiokinase or acyl coenzyme synthetase, which is magnesium requiring enzymes. It requires magnesium, ATP is consumed, it will give you AMP and 2-pyrophosphate, and ultimately fatty acids gives you fatty acyl coenzyme. Now this is alpha carbon, and this is this is alpha carbon, and here we are having beta carbon. So now these two, both the carbons are reactive. So this is the function of this activation process. Now once we have done this activation process, so what we have seen it, acyl coenzyme synthetase or thiokinase activated your fatty acids and gives you acyl coenzyme. So this acyl coenzyme is present in either into the cytoplasm or into the inner mitochondria, means intermembranous space of mitochondria. Now this acyl coenzyme need to be transported into the mitochondrial matrix, because rest of the oxidation will occur there only. So for the transportation system of this fatty acids, acyl coenzyme, we require a system which involves the carnitine. Carnitine is a chemicals whose chemical names are beta hydroxy gamma trimethyl ammonium butyrate. Beta hydroxy gamma trimethyl ammonium butyrate. No need to remember that rest. If you don't require it, don't remember it, but otherwise this is the name. So we require a carnitine subtle system which help us in the transportation of this acyl coenzyme into the mitochondrial matrix. So either it is called as carnitine subtle system or it is called as carnitine carrier system. Now the first reaction in this transportation is this acyl coenzyme, which we have got after the first reaction, is going to combine with carnitine, and this combination is catalyzed by an enzyme that is called as CAT, carnitine acyl transferase. Because if you are going to use palmitic acid, so it is called as carnitine palmitoyl transferase. Otherwise you can commonly call as carnitine acyl transferase 1, CAT1, which is present in the outer mitochondrial membrane or inside of the outer mitochondrial membranes or outside of inner mitochondrial membrane. So this CAT is going to catalyze this conversion of acyl coenzyme plus carnitine. Here this coenzyme A is going to be released, and this acyl portion is combined with carnitine. So we are going to get acyl carnitine. Now this still it is in between the mitochondrial. This is outer mitochondrial membrane and this is inner mitochondrial membrane. So this acyl carnitine, these first reactions takes place into the intermembranous space catalyzed by CAT, carnitine acyl transferase 1. This acyl carnitine is going to be transported into the mitochondrial matrix with the help of a translocase enzyme, that is called as carnitine acyl carnitine translocase. Because it translocates, one way it is going to translocate transfer acyl carnitine, from other way it is going to translocate carnitine simultaneously. So same enzyme going to translocate both the things, acyl carnitine into the mitochondrial membranes and carnitine outside the mitochondrial membrane. We will see that one also. So this translocase help us in the transportation of acyl carnitine into the mitochondrial matrix. So acyl carnitine came here. Now this acyl carnitine is going to react with coenzyme and gives us acyl coenzyme A, which we have started, and carnitine is becomes going to be free. So from this one, acyl portion is going to combine with coenzyme A and carnitine becomes free. So this carnitine is going to be transported outside for the next cycle. So this reactions, combination of coenzyme A plus acyl carnitine catalyzed by CAT2. This is CAT1, carnitine acyl transferase 1. Here is the carnitine acyl transferase 2. So total 4 step reactions are there. What are the reactions? If you will see here, the first reaction is acyl coenzyme A is going to combine with carnitine, gives you acyl carnitine, and coenzyme A portion will be free, catalyzed by carnitine acyl transferase CAT1. This is intermembranous inner mitochondrial means intermembranous space of mitochondrial membrane. This acyl carnitine is going to be transported into the mitochondrial matrix by translocase. So acyl carnitine came into the mitochondria. Now this acyl carnitine is going to combine with a new molecule of mitochondrial coenzyme A, gives acyl coenzyme A becomes free and carnitine is released there. And in the fourth step, this carnitine is going to be transported back to the intermembranous space for the next cycle. So these are the 4 step reactions. So first step, carnitine plus acyl coenzyme A. Second step, acyl carnitine transportations. Third step, carnitine going to be freed, and fourth step, transportation of carnitine. So we have seen same carnitine acyl transferase 1 and carnitine acyl transferase 2 is going to catalyze outside the mitochondria and inside the mitochondria, and the reverse reactions will be there. In our cells, we are having 2 different type of coenzyme A portions. One is this coenzyme A, which is cytosolic portions, and this is another coenzyme A, which is mitochondrial. So roughly in our cells, we are having 2 different type of coenzyme A pool, cytosolic and mitochondrial coenzyme A pool. So this is how my acyl coenzyme A, which we have activated during the first step, is transported inside the mitochondrial matrix and ready for the beta oxidation process. So this is the second step of the reactions. Now we are going to come to the third step of the fatty acid oxidations. What is this fatty acid oxidations? So fatty acid oxidation actually is the degradations of fatty acids. So in this case, each cycle of beta oxidations releases 2 carbon acetyl coenzyme A through a sequence of 4 different reactions. What are those reactions? They are oxidation, or you can call it dehydrogenations, because dehydrogenase enzyme are there, so hydrogen will be removed. So removal of hydrogen is oxidation. So oxidations, hydration, water will be added there. Third, again oxidation, here also dehydrogenation, and fourth, it will be cleavage. So these are the 4 different steps are there, and these steps are repeated many times. So this is a cyclic type of process. Now these 4 steps requiring 4 different sets of enzymes. So first, oxidation requires acyl coenzyme dehydrogenase. Second, hydration requires enoyl coenzyme hydratase. Third, oxidation requires beta hydroxy acyl coenzyme dehydrogenase. And fourth, cleavage requires beta ketoacyl coenzyme thiolase or simply thiolase. So these are the 4 different sets. One by one we are going to see the process of this beta oxidations. So first step, that is called oxidation, it is also called as dehydrogenations, means removal of 2 hydrogen atoms. So removal of 2 hydrogen atoms takes place from the 2 alpha and 3 carbon, that is beta carbon. So from alpha carbon 1 hydrogen is going to be removed, and from beta 1 hydrogen atom is going to be removed, and this reaction is catalyzed by acyl coenzyme dehydrogenase. And it results into the delta 3 trans enoyl coenzyme A, or it is also called as alpha beta unsaturated acyl coenzyme A, whatever you can call it. Trans means this, after this hydrogen will be removed, you can see from this hydrogen will be removed and this hydrogen has been removed. So ultimately, after the removal of 2 hydrogen, 1 double bond has been created here, and because both remaining hydrogens are in the trans position, so that's why it is called as trans delta 2 enoyl coenzyme A, or you can also call it alpha beta unsaturated acyl coenzyme A. Here the hydrogen acceptor is the flavoprotein, flavin, FAD. So this FAD is going to be converted into FADH2 after the acceptance of those two hydrogen, and this FADH2 gone to ETC, electron transport chain, and gives you ATP. So this is the first reactions in the fatty acid oxidations which releases fatty acid, means energy equivalents. So we have different type of acyl coenzyme A dehydrogenase, that is G type, Y type. Actually that do not required here. Now whatever we have got, this alpha beta unsaturated acyl coenzyme A will go for second step of reactions. So that is hydration. Hydration means we are going to add hydrogen, addition of one molecule of water. One molecule of water is added to saturate the double bonds. Whatever double bond we have created here after this dehydrogenase reactions, this double bonds will be removed, saturated by addition of water, and water is going to be dissociated into H plus and OH minus, means one carbon will take H, another carbon will take OH minus. So as you can see here, the beta carbon takes OH and the alpha carbon takes H. So this is hydration reactions. So ultimately this reaction is catalyzed by inoyl coenzyme A hydratase, and product will be 3L hydroxy acyl coenzyme A. This is also called as inoyl hydrolase, or previously it was called as crotonase also. So remember, these are some of the names of this enzyme is crotonase, or it is also called as inoyl hydratase only. So these are the different names of the same compound. So ultimately unsaturated bonds has been removed, and we have got a saturated hydroxy acyl coenzyme A, where one beta carbon have hydroxyl group. In the third reaction, where we are going to do the again oxidation. Oxidation means again dehydrogenation reactions. Here also we are going to remove two hydrogen molecules. So the 3-hydroxy acyl coenzyme A, which we have produced here, 3-hydroxy acyl coenzyme A, is going for further dehydrogenation reactions, and on a third 3 carbon catalyzed by the enzyme 3-hydroxy acyl coenzyme A dehydrogenase. 3-hydroxy acyl coenzyme A dehydrogenase. So it removes two hydrogen molecules, but from the same carbon, from the beta carbon. So that's why it is called as beta oxidation. So this hydrogen and this hydrogen is going to be removed. So ultimately two hydrogen will be removed and only one oxygen will be remained, that will give you ketonic structure. So it is called as beta keto acyl coenzyme A. So the first reactions we have removed two hydrogen. Second reaction we have added water molecules. Beta carbon got hydroxyl group and alpha carbon got hydrogen protons. In the third reaction again we are going to remove 2 OH from the beta carbon, and we have got a ketonic structure. So that is called as beta keto acyl coenzyme A. Here again whatever hydrogen we are going to remove, that hydrogen X is going to be accepted by NAD plus, and it is going to give you NADH2, NADH plus. This is going to electron transport chain, and it will give you again ATP. So in the whole process, these three reactions, we have got one FADH2, one NADH. Now the fourth reaction of this one, that is called as cleavage. So we have seen first reaction, dehydrogenase reactions or oxidation reactions, where two hydrogen will be removed. Then we have hydration reactions where water will be added. Third reactions we have created beta keto acyl coenzyme A. In the fourth reactions, that is the final reaction of beta oxidations, it generates 2 carbon fragment acetyl coenzyme A. So this 2 carbon is going to be detached in the form of, because it involves coenzyme A. So this coenzyme A portion will be added to this beta carbon, and this molecule will be released in the form of acetyl coenzyme A, and the original fatty acids becomes 2 carbon, a smaller fatty acid chain. So the carbon chain has been reduced in the length by 2 carbon atom, and this reaction is catalyzed by beta ketothiolase or simply thiolase. So these are the 4 reactions. So oxidation, hydration, oxidation and cleavage. So you should remember this one. So this process, these 4 reactions is repeated multiple times depending on the carbon length of the fatty acids, so that ultimately we are going to get only 2 carbon or 3 carbon chain length. If we are having, so you can see here, we have started with this fatty acyl coenzyme A, which came from the cytoplasm. First reactions, FADH to be produced. So it is, here we are having trans structures, double bond has been created. Then hydrations, we have added OH group and hydrogen group. So it is beta hydroxyacyl coenzyme A. Then dehydrogenation again. So we have created a beta ketoacyl coenzyme A. In the 4th reaction, cleavage. So it will be cleaved from here, and ultimately we have got acetyl coenzyme A and 2 carbon smaller fatty acids. Again this 2 carbon smaller fatty acid will go for the same 4 reactions. Again one acetyl coenzyme A will be produced, and again we will have a 2 carbon chain length smaller. This acetyl coenzyme A, ultimately it is entering into the TCA cycle, because it is in the mitochondria only. It will enter into the TCA cycle, metabolize and gives you FADH, 2 NADH and GTP. So every acetyl coenzyme A gives you 3 NADH2 and ADH2, 1 FADH2 and 1 GTP. So every cycle of every acetyl coenzyme will give you this one. So for example, if you are going to start with the 14 carbon chain length, so 14 carbon chain length, we have started with 14 carbon. So in the after the first cycle we have got 1 acetyl coenzyme A and 12 carbon, because 2 carbon has been removed here. So 12 carbon chain length we have got it here. This 12 carbon will again go to the Krebs of those 4 reactions, again releases 1 fatty acetyl coenzyme A. Now the 10 carbon chain length fatty acid we have got it. Again this will go for fatty acid oxidations, again 2 carbon. So till it is going to occurs in every cycle till we are having this 4 carbon chain length we have got it. This is going for fatty oxidation. So in this case 1 acetyl coenzyme A will be produced. So after this degradation you will get 2 fatty acid oxidation, means 2 acetyl coenzyme A. So ultimately if you have started with 14 carbon chain length, we have got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 7 acetyl coenzyme A you have got it, and this 7 acetyl coenzyme A will enter into the 7 times TCA cycle. So you can multiply those 7, means 21 NADH2, 7 FADH2 and 7 GTP. How many times it has to divide? This is first division, second division, third division, fourth division, fifth division, and this is 1/6 division. So total 6 times it will divide, because 7th cycle ultimately gives you 2 acetyl coenzyme A. If you are going to start with 16 carbon chain length, so you will ultimately get 8 acetyl coenzyme A after the 7th cycle. So 7th cycle means cycle will be 1 time less than the acetyl coenzyme A, because last cycle does not enter into the Krebs cycle, directly it gives you 2 acetyl coenzyme A. Now we are going to see the energetics, how much energy is going to be produced. So we have seen every fatty acid cycle gives you, every time you are going to release 1 acetyl coenzyme A, you are going to get 1 FADH2 and 1 NADH2. Now you can see here. So each cycle will give you, each time fatty acid is going to be oxidized, 1 cycle you are going to get 1 FADH2, 1 NADH2 and 1 acetyl coenzyme A. And 1 acetyl coenzyme A will gives you through the Krebs cycle 1 GTP, 3 NADH2 and 1 FADH2. Means if you are going to do a beta oxidation of 16 carbon chain length, so 16 carbon chain length will give you how many times? It has to go for, it will give you 8 acetyl coenzyme A. You can see here it will go for 7 cycles. So 7 cycle will give you 7 FADH2, 7 cycle will give you 7 NADH2, and this 8 acetyl coenzyme A will give you 24 8 multiplied by 3 NADH2 means every Krebs cycle it will enter into the Krebs cycle and it will give you 3 acetyl NADH2, 1 FADH2 and 1 GTP. So now overall if you see it, we have started here with the palmitic acid. Palmitic acid means it is having 16 carbon. So 16 carbon means we will get 7 cycle 8 acetyl coenzyme A. Now every Krebs cycle gives you, because we are going to get 8 acetyl coenzyme A, so 8 times acetyl Krebs cycle has to occur, and that one Krebs cycle gives you 12 ATP. That already we have seen it. So 8 multiplied by 8 equal to 12 multiplied by 8 equal to 96 ATP you have got through this Krebs cycle. And 7 times you have to run this fatty acid cycle because this 16 carbon. So 7 times you have got 7 FADH2 means 14 ATP, 7 NADH2 means 21 ATP. So if you are going to combine these two, we have got 131 ATP. But in the first reaction during the activation process, you have already used 1 ATP to AMP. So you have lost 2 ATP. So overall net gain from one palmitic acid, that is 129 ATP. Similarly, you can calculate for any fatty acids. Either it will be 14 carbon chain length, 20 carbon chain length. So you can see how many times you have to run the Krebs fatty acid oxidations. So how many ATP you are going to get it from the Krebs cycle means n number of acetyl coenzyme A. So that many ATP from the Krebs cycle, and NADH2 and FADH2 from beta oxidations. So this is how energetics will be calculated. So this is all about the fatty acid oxidation, beta oxidations. There are few different beta oxidations also occurs for odd chain fatty acids, for some other omega oxidations, alpha oxidations. So slowly we will talk about, those are the smaller units, so that we will talk later on. When we are talking about beta oxidation, there are two important disease we are having. So I will make a separate video on the disease. The disease names are called as SIDS, that is called as sudden infant death syndromes, and second one is Japanese vomiting sickness. Both are the disease of beta oxidations. In the beta oxidations which we have seen, the first enzyme which involves was that acyl coenzyme dehydrogenase. So both diseases, SIDS and Jamaican vomiting sickness, is the disease of this acyl coenzyme dehydrogenase. So we will make a separate video on this disease and then we will provide you. Hope you have understand it, all the 3 steps of the fatty beta acid oxidations, energetics, and if you have any query, any comments, you can write in the comment box. If you didn't understand anything, you can ask, I will give you answers. If you have not subscribed my channel, please subscribe it. So I am ready to help you at any time. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.